Hi, I'm Karen Hurt, and I'm here with our next edition of Asking for a Friend. And you have to love it when someone asks a question that is just so candid and sincere. Hey, Karen, I really want to be an effective listener, but I get so impatient and it's hard. What do I do? Well, I know the perfect person to ask for this. So today I have Michael Reddington here. He is a listening expert. He is the author of the Disciplined Listening Method. He has a wonderful podcast, which David and I have both been on. I see what you're saying. But mostly he really, really knows about how to listen well. So, Michael, thanks so much for joining us on Asking for a Friend today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
All right, let's just jump right in. First, why don't you just tell people a little bit about your background and how you got so good at this listening stuff, and then let's dig into this question.
Well, how good I am at listening is debatable, and which day you ask my wife could change the answer. So let's be honest and upfront about that. But by trade, I'm a certified forensic interviewer. So investigative interviewing was my career for a long time. Now I serve as an executive resource, mostly being called in to work with business development teams and senior leadership teams, really to help them apply the strategic observation and persuasive communication skills necessary to obtain the everyday confessions that seem to elude us in our business conversations. But really, when you look back at the investigative work my teammates and I did, most often we were asked to go in and interview people when there was no evidence, everybody had already been interrogated, and nobody had confessed. So in those scenarios, we literally had to listen so somebody could tell us what they needed to experience before they would be willing to tell the truth. So yes, we had plans and techniques, but other people had to show us the road to take before we could get on that road. That experience, among many others, really is what led to the eventual creation of the disciplined listening and the path we take, and why I'm a nerd for this question today.
All right. So let's go. So what do you do? Because I am this way too. Right? I can be very impatient, and it is hard to listen well when you're feeling that way. So what advice do you have here?
So a quick line, a story, and then I'll dive in. So what I like to try to remind people as often as possible is time is the enemy of empathy.
Ooh.
Anytime we're prioritizing speed over quality, quality suffers. And anybody in design work knows that. But the same is true in relationships as well. So as soon as I start consciously or subconsciously prioritizing when this conversation ends, I've now deprioritized what I can learn, what I can provide, what I can experience. And as my stress levels rise, as I start running up against this potentially arbitrary deadline, now I'm going to blame you for the stress that I'm creating for myself, and this whole thing falls apart. The story that I feel is kind of funny, but I guess the listeners can decide. So I was teaching the seminar. It was a half-day event, I don't know, a couple years ago now. And about halfway through it, a guy raises his hand with a disgruntled look on his face. And I'm a gambler, so I called on him. What can I help you with? And I swear to you, he says to me, I thought you were going to teach me to be a better listener today.
Oh.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, I still got time. And he says to me, for instance, with my wife. No, I'm ready to exit stage left. Like, whatever's coming next is probably not what I want to deal with. He says it takes her at least 15 minutes to say something she could have said in 2. And I can't listen for the next 13 minutes. We spent some time together. You know, I grew up in the Northeast. You know, my sarcastic mouth sometimes gets out ahead of my brain and I can't control it. I looked that guy right in the face and said, I can't teach you how to care.
Ooh.
His face gets red. I'm thinking today's the day I'd rather not get fired. So I quickly responded by saying, I'm not telling you don't care about your wife. But I am telling you, you don't care enough about what she has to say to listen for the next 13 minutes. And often when it comes to I'm impatient and I can't listen, sometimes that's a self-image thing. I'm type A, I move fast. People need to be direct. So we kind of have to get over ourselves. But often in other times, what we're doing is we're prioritizing our emotions in the moment over the outcome that we can achieve. So when it comes to learning to be patient in conversation, it honestly comes down to giving ourselves a reason to care. Hence, time is the enemy of empathy. If I'm having a conversation with you, I've got to care to some degree about the outcome we can achieve or the relationship that we have. If something is important about the outcome or the relationship, now I can stay focused. And because I'm focused on the outcome, now I can listen to uncover hidden value. I can give myself a purpose to be in this conversation. Instead of just checking the box, what's the emotional connotation of the word choice? What is she not saying? What's a new alternative that might be present? How can I surprise myself here? Now I can be invested in the conversation because the outcome is more valuable than the emotion I'm feeling in the moment, which is what often leads to the impatience.
Oh, what I love about that is so practical, just to get yourself in that mindset, the outcome or the relationship. And often it's the outcome and the relationship, right? Landing in the end of all of that. Beautiful. So how do you do that, like really practically? Like when you feel yourself getting impatient, is there any specific tips?
Several, and some of them are going to sound a bit cheesy off the bat. I'll admit that. One of them is honestly take a deep breath. Is if I can regulate my breathing, I can regulate my heart rate, I can slow the blood flow down in my brain, I can start operating on a different level. So regulate your breathing is one. And I got great advice from a friend of mine who used to run USA Judo that says for all of us, one of the best things that we can do is increase our capacity to breathe. Do yoga, do fitness, do martial arts, meditate, whatever it is, increase your capacity to breathe, because then it helps you in these types of situations, which is true. Because I think back to interrogations I did when I was in bad physical condition, and I can easily recall the difference. You wouldn't think it matters, but it does. So learn to increase your capacity to breathe, take a deep breath. The second is consciously recognize that you are the one creating your own stress, which can be difficult for us. We are the lowest common denominator. And second, try to focus on what you can achieve in the outcome. What could you learn? What could be next? If I elevate my expectations, I elevate my effort. If my expectations fall, my effort falls with it. So if I feel myself starting to get, oh, come on, this conversation should have been over 10 minutes ago. Well, that's probably true, but it's not helping me now. So if I can take a deep breath and say, okay, what can I still get from this conversation to make this investment of my time worth it for this outcome or this relationship? Now I can reinvest and pick up my effort.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much. Can you just let our listeners know how they can find more, where they can get your book? How can they learn more about you?
Thank you for asking. They can connect with me right here on LinkedIn. I'd be very happy with that. Michael Reddington, CFI. The company's website is InQuasive.com. The book is DisciplinedListening.com. And you can find more about me and my work at MichaelReddington.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And see you next time on Asking for a Friend.